Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome everyone to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am excited to have Georgia Homsany as my guest. And let me tell you about her. She is 15 years in the corporate world, decided she's going to stop doing marketing and brand management, and began Daily Dose to help small to mid-sized businesses provide wellness breaks to give employees the time needed to prevent burnout, which in turn improves productivity and aids in retention. Research shows that 40% of employees are encouraged to work harder and perform better because of workplace wellness programs. So I'm going to have her talk to you about the origin and the idea of Daily Dose in a few moments. But just to give you a little bit of information, she's a native of New Jersey with a BS in marketing from the University of Scranton and an MBA from Boston University. And she's a certified in Reiki 1 and 2, and most recently published her first book, You're Not Lazy, Change Your Words to Change Your Worth. So today we're going to talk about reimagining your workplace wellness program. Please join me in welcoming Georgia Homsany. Georgia.
Hi, Vicki. Thank you so much for that introduction.
You're very welcome. We always start out with 2 easy questions. The first is tell everybody where you live now. And then let's talk about that journey that took you from your corporate world to what you're doing today.
Sure. The first question is not really easy for me right now because I am living a nomad life this year. So I was most recently in Raleigh, North Carolina at the end of 2023, and then 2024 I've been traveling. So I spent part of the year in Australia and Bali, New Zealand, and then I've been hopping around visiting people in the US. So I actually don't have a home currently, but I am tuning in today from New Jersey, which is where I'm originally from.
Awesome.
So that answers question 1, which was not as straightforward, I'm sure, as you typically deal with.
You'd be surprised.
But to answer your second question, how I came into starting the business. So yes, as you mentioned in the intro there, I worked in corporate for a while doing marketing and brand management, and I had reached a point of burnout in my last company that I thought I would really be at my entire career. I loved it and had just ran into some issues with the company and how things were being run. And I had reached this point of burnout. And so I left the industry I was in, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do next, but I've always had a passion for wellness. And it never even dawned on me to pivot and change careers at this point in my life. But my thought was, why not take something I'm passionate about and I can pair it with my business background and actually serve the corporate workplace. So that is what I did. And I still have to do marketing for my own business, but I'm able to get exposure to a lot more areas. You know, obviously being a business owner, you're pretty much running the show. So sales, operations, finance, all of those things. But I do love the corporate world. I know it gets a bad rap, but I feel really grateful that I'm able to still be in that space and help people that might be in a similar position to what I was going through.
Awesome. Very good. So Why does wellness need to be incorporated in our lives regularly?
Well, a lot of people are struggling mentally. And I think years ago, when people talked about wellness, the two things that probably come to mind are physical wellness, like working out, and then nutrition. But I think ever since the pandemic, mental health has been struggling. And so that's been getting a lot more attention because when everyone had to go through that, we had a lot of added stressors in our lives because this was something unprecedented that we hadn't really been taught how to deal with. So I think what had happened is we are built as humans to be able to manage stress in short increments. But with something like a pandemic where there's a lot of unknowns, you're isolated, you don't know what to expect. You don't know if you're going to keep your job. You don't know if you're going to get sick. You don't know if your family's going to get sick. So it almost put people into this chronic state of stress that was long term.
Yeah.
And when we cannot get out of that fight or flight mode, then we start to see impacts on our mental health. And once our mental health goes, it's pretty much downhill. So you could work out 5 hours a day, which does help your mental health, I will say. But if at the end of the day you are struggling mentally, it's really hard to be able to give the areas of your life the focus and attention that they need.
And it's interesting too. Some of the things that we know we need to do can cause stress. So if we're working all the time and we know we need to work out, but we're working all the time, and so now we're stressing because we can't work out, but we know we should work out. So it's like this constant battle that we have.
Well, and I do tell people, take a closer look at that, because a lot of times, and I talk about this in the book, Vicki, we should ourselves. So SHOULD. So a lot of times we'll say, oh, I should go to the gym. I should really close my laptop earlier. And I want people to really challenge that and dig deeper and ask yourself why. Okay, because if you love to work and that fuels you and you want to work 10 hours a day, don't only work 8 hours just because that's what you feel like you should do. So I think a lot of times we just are listening to what other people are telling us or what societal norms are. And I really try to encourage people, challenge that. Okay, why should you be doing that? If you don't really care about going to the gym, maybe don't go to the gym. Maybe find other ways to be healthy. I tell people, like, playing outside with your kids, you're burning calories and you're moving. So think about it as how you can move your body instead of the traditional working out if you really despise working out. Yeah. So find things you like to do, because what that's going to trigger is that's going to allow you to do things more consistently. Because what happens is when we should ourselves into doing something, we quit it because we don't really want to be doing it. We just feel like we're supposed to. So if you actually pick activities that you enjoy doing, there's a greater likelihood that you will actually be able to stick with that. And then that's when it starts to have positive long-term results, because you're able to consistently do something positive over time.
And I found when I was working corporately, but also working, remotely, as well as now as an entrepreneur, just through the day, I just know that, and my watch is helpful to tell me I need to move. And it may be 10 minutes I spend moving around, it may be a half an hour, but just so that there is you could work 10 hours, but you might have 3 or 4 breaks in those 10 hours to make you not sitting on your butt the whole time.
Exactly. And I think when we talk about breaks, a lot of times people think it needs to be an hour lunch break or a 30-minute break to get outside. And I like to call things micro breaks and looking at it in bite-sized segments, because once again, I think that feels more palatable when we're able to break it down into smaller things. So if I were to say to you, okay, instead of taking a 30-minute break every day, 1 minute out of every hour, just get up and go to the bathroom, refill your water, leave your phone on the other side of the room. So if you need to check it, you have to walk to another room to go get it, or across the room. So think about, instead of these long breaks, which is what, we're typically taught, okay, you need to take a lunch break. You need to take at least a 15 to 20-minute break. And then people feel like, oh, but that's going to set me back in my work day. So just think about these micro breaks. Maybe if you're getting outside, it's for 5 minutes and you're just walking around the block. And I really promise you that will make you feel better if you could just step away from technology and just allow yourself to clear your mind. Once again, going back to that mental health, and it could literally be 5 minutes that you're doing that, throughout the day.
I found that a lot of times when you get stuck with a problem that you're trying to solve and you're staring at it, it's taking longer, that if that's a great time to just stop, walk away and do something sort of mindlessly. So for me, working from home, I'll scrub the floor, or I'll vacuum, or I'll, as you said, take a walk where my mind is freed because I'm not doing this mindless work. But and oftentimes you find the answer to the problem.
Yes, exactly. Time. Yeah, I know. And sometimes it feels good to do chores when that's your break. I've been experiencing that this week, where if I just step away from the computer, and because I have a tendency to want to always feel productive, but then if I start folding the laundry, you're right, then it almost clears up space in my mind. And then I'll be like, oh, I have a creative idea for how to approach something. So I agree with you on that.
Awesome. So how can you help the corporate audience to reimagine their wellness program? You talked a lot of it just a few minutes ago of different things you can do, but whenever you approach that audience that may be thinking in the traditional way of doing things, what is your process that you would do to get them to maybe think more innovatively, creatively, getting to know really what their audience needs?
Yeah. So I think this is obviously a very broad question that there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. I know for us at Daily Dose, our model is to build breaks into the workday. So we literally provide those wellness breaks, and it's usually in the form of a 30-minute education session. We actually have one following this podcast. And we focus on topics like financial wellness, nutrition. Sometimes it's a yoga class. Today we're doing a meditation class to give your mind a rest. So, and the reason why I built the company under those grounds is because I feel like there's a lot of app companies out there, and app companies are great because it's on demand. You get to pick what you want to do. But for me, I didn't want to give people something else they had to do at the end of the workday. So you come home and then it's like, oh, now I have to work out. Now I have to watch this wellness video. And you have too many other things to juggle with your home life, right? So really, Daily Dose, we try to give companies those 30-minute wellness breaks that you could do right on your lunch break or any time of day that works best for the company, and help people take a time out from work and then also educate them on these new wellness habits they could be adopting. So that is one thing I would say to companies is, what can you provide, incorporating it into the company culture that takes place during the workday, where it's not something additional we're having to give employees to do on top of their typical workday. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second is really think about what matters to the employees. And I'm a big proponent of surveys or one-on-one meetings, really to get that feedback, because each person is so unique. And that's probably the hardest part about my job, is when we're doing custom programs for a company and they'll say, well, what are you seeing? What's working out there? And literally it changes company to company, person to person. So it is really hard to develop a comprehensive program for an entire company, knowing that we all have so many different preferences. But try and survey your employees. There might be things like people just want more flexibility. So maybe it's, offering summer hours, like that could be part of your wellness program. So when you're asking, how do we become more creative? That isn't something most companies are thinking about as part of wellness, but I definitely feel like it is. Another thing I try to challenge managers is, do you need to have as many meetings? There are so many days at my last company where my calendar would just be booked solid the whole day, back-to-back meetings. And not saying none of the meetings were relevant, but there's a lot of meetings I think we can all admit we probably don't need to be involved in, or someone else can represent us as our team and then report back. Or sometimes it could just be an email, but we're just so used to having, let's say, a weekly status meeting and then everyone's there and there's not really much to talk about. So really think about how many mandatory meetings that are going on in the company, and if you can scale that back to give people some more of their time back so they don't feel like, okay, I've just spent the whole day in meetings and now I need to start the projects that I need to do at the end of the day. So those would be my tips.
I was a project manager for a long time, and one of the things at the end of my career that I wanted to institute, and then I retired and never got it, but I thought, I never had meetings unless I needed to have meetings. But as you said, I was asked to come to all these status meetings, and the status meetings could easily be put in a SharePoint or a Google Doc or something where you put the status, and then any questions anyone had on that, any status could be then started a conversation. And if the conversation was going too long, now a topic that needs to be a face-to-face meeting, as opposed to spending 3 hours just giving a status update. Nobody's questioning anything. The big boss might be asking some questions, but all those questions could have just been done through that conversation online, taking advantage of technology.
Right. And delegating. So if you're a manager, this could be a good opportunity for you to say to someone on your team, hey, I'm going to count on you to be the point person for our team in this meeting, and giving them the responsibility. I think, and I know this from personal experience, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So I used to think, well, I need to be on there to make sure everything goes right. And I'm sure a lot of people, if you're like me, are out there shaking their heads thinking, yep, that's me. I don't want to, I know I could answer every question and really, if you're a manager, this is a good chance for you to delegate and give your team some extra responsibility and use it as a teaching moment. Yeah. And on the flip side, if you're not a manager, try to manage up in a way. So if your boss is asking you to be on a meeting, I'm not saying don't be on it, but actually look and think if you need to be on that meeting. And if you're feeling overwhelmed with all the projects you have, that could be a good opportunity to say to your manager, right now, I had planned to work on X, Y, and Z today. Would this meeting be more of a priority, or do you want me to rearrange some of my priorities? Because I think that's going to look better if you have accountability with what you're working on and you're helping them to understand your workload and to manage your time. Because too often we just say, yes, 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 yes. My boss asked me to do this. And that's why we're overworked, because we're not saying no, we're not putting up boundaries. And so our bosses think, okay, we could just keep giving all this because they keep saying yes and taking it on.
So we only have a couple more minutes, but what are some things that companies are doing right, and what are some things they're doing wrong? We covered a few things here, but in these last few seconds, if you had to say, I have to tell you this, in my experience.
Yeah, I think the companies that are adding ERGs, employee resource groups, and wellness committees and DE&I committees and surveying employees and trying to get this information, that's all great. I would just ask that you make sure that then you are looping people into what that data is saying. Because sometimes I will hear people say, oh, I filled out the survey, or my company wanted to know what I wanted for wellness, but then I don't know what happened to that information. So I think if you're doing all the right things, just make sure that you are closing the loop and then letting people know what the company decided to move forward with, or sharing the results of whatever those surveys were. The companies that are not asking for feedback, it's tough because it starts with the manager and the CEO, really that leadership team. And honestly, if I hear people sometimes say, oh, we'd love to do wellness programs, but basically my company stinks and they're not going to put budget towards this. I don't even know what to say to those people. And I never try to convince. Those are the companies I'm trying to work with or convince, because I think if leadership sees that as an expense instead of this is a way to invest in your people, and any smart leadership committee knows how expensive it is to hire and retain talent. And if you don't, I just feel like I can't help you. Like you need to get it. So that might be a bit harsh, but I would say that the companies that are trying to move in the right direction continue to involve as many different sides of getting a full representation of the company. So someone, and not just demographically and, age, but also tenure with the company, where they are in their life stage. So thinking about those things and making sure that you have representation to then put together programs like this.
Excellent ideas. All right. For those of you that have enjoyed this conversation and want to know more or talk a little bit more with Georgia, I'm going to share my screen. As always, you should have been taking note. The website is dailydose-wellness.com, and she has a second website related to her book, and that is georgiahomsany.com, her name. On LinkedIn, she is at, if you could search her name, Georgia-Homsany, and that's Homsany. And I'm going to turn it over to Georgia to talk to you about what she has on her websites and her LinkedIn page. So Georgia, it's all yours.
Yeah, so if you are looking for any wellness speakers, corporate workshops, or wellness programs, I would direct you to, you could either email me at georgia@dailydose-wellness.com, or go to the website, which is listed here, dailydose-wellness.com, or find me on LinkedIn. I live there. If you are interested in reframing negative self-talk, which a lot of us do and don't even realize we're doing it, that is what the second website, georgiahomsany.com, is all about. And that will link you to my book called You're Not Lazy, Change Your Words to Change Your Worth. So connect with me. I also have a quiz. I'll share that with you, Vicki. It's how sexy is your self-talk? So that'll help you raise your awareness of how you are speaking to yourself. And that's a fun one just to kind of gauge where you're at. So happy to share that with the audience.
Awesome. Well, definitely we should have a second conversation all about your book. I do also public speaking training, and self-talk is one of the things that I really, in a lot of our episodes, we talk about that and how damaging it is, and it's generational. So
exactly.
I definitely think we can have a nice conversation about that book. But for now, those of you that have enjoyed, please do connect with Georgia and see how she might be able to help you. And thank you so much for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you, Vicki.
Awesome. And as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.